For some background, I live at the UK, and go to a school with a uniform. I go to quite a large all-girls school with about 8 classes of 30 per year, with 5 years and a 6th form attached, so I have heard about creeps lingering outside of the school before, but they are usually sorted out quite quickly by school staff, I guess. At the time, I was in year 9, so just 13 and about 4'9". I had a big homework assignment due, and because I didn't have a computer at home, I stayed late at school to do it in the ICT suite. As it was the beginning of the school year, it was relatively dark at 5 p.m., which is when I got out of school and this event took place. I had to get the bus home as both my parents were working. The bus stop outside my school was fairly busy. There was a couple other people and me. I had my back up against a fence and noticed a man under the bus stop, facing away from, but next to, the road and opposite the fence I was leaning on. I was aware of my surroundings as I have had previous experiences with old creeps, and I'm just a generally paranoid person. The man didn't strike me as particularly interesting, but I did notice him glance over at me from the corner of my eye. I then saw a bus and assumed it was mine, so I stepped forward to check. It was not my bus, which was annoying as I was cold and didn't have a coat. As I went to step back up against the fence, I almost stood back into the man that was under the bus stop originally, but he had moved to directly behind me. He had his arm up against the pole next to the bus stop, telling you the buses that come to the bus stop. I felt a bit cornered in but couldn't move, as the other side of me had all the people waiting to get on this bus that was coming. It felt like forever as I could feel this man breathe on the top of my head as I watched the bus come and collect all the other people at the bus stop, but it was probably only a minute and a half. Once the last person got on that bus, I quickly moved out of this man's area and back against the fence. He moved so he was back under the bus stop, sitting across from me staring at the ground. At last, my bus came after about 3 minutes. I didn't want to give away the fact I was getting on this bus, but I had to wave it down, so I stood next to the road to signal it over. As I got on, my heart was really going as the man was back behind me. I had already got my bus card out and scanned it very quickly and only saw a few people downstairs. Normally there might be a few people upstairs in this case, so that's where I headed. That was probably my biggest success or mistake, I don't know, to be honest. I got up there and it was completely empty. Great. Well, I couldn't really go back down at this point because I knew the man had already gotten on and would be coming up the stairs, so I did the next best thing. I sat in the outside seat directly in front of the bus's camera, which I kept looking directly at, just in case something happened. The man came up the stairs, as expected, and he sat at the right back of the bus, not before looking and smiling at me as he passed. It was then that I had the idea that probably saved me. I live on a quiet street and it was already dark now, so there was no way I was getting off this bus at my stop with this man. I pulled out my phone and earbuds. I put one bud in my ear and texted my best friend to play along when I FaceTimed her and informed her of the situation. She understood, and along with some small talk I talked loudly about how my mom was so mad that I had stayed late at school and that she had texted me saying that she waiting at the door for me, and I had told her that I was only 10 minutes away. In reality, I told my mom that I was staying late in the morning before I left for school, and now my mom was at work, 45 minutes away, and so was my dad, about an hour and a half away, with limited access to either of their phones. I was at my stop to get off now, and I took a deep breath as I stood up. I looked back at the man and he was looking at me as I walked down the stairs. My friend was screen recording at this point just in case something went down. Thankfully he didn't follow me down, but as I was walking away from the bus, looked back to see him up against the back window, hands and fists staring at me. That is when I took my flimsy school shoes off and sprinted to my house. As the next bus stop was still in eyesight, there were 2 on the main road that led down to my street. Once I was down my street and far enough away that you couldn't see the top of it anymore, I told my friend about him up against the window, she understood, and I put my shoes back on, and speed walked the rest of the way to my house. My family still doesn't know about this, even though I was quite proud of myself on how I handled the situation, and how I had ran with no shoes on, a heavy skirt, and a big rucksack on my back. I don't think they ever will know because, as much I don't want to ever stay late at school ever again, I know I probably will have to again at some point, and I don't want my parents to feel guilty about not being able to help if something more serious was to happen while they were at work. But yeah, to the creepy man who doesn't know what personal space is, or frankly doesn't care, I hope we never meet again.